Got it. Okay. Lindsay, can you see me up on Facebook? Yeah. Okay.
Good to go.
Yes. No, that's great. No, it's a great product. And I always want to do it in the first part of the year, because you can see the snow-capped mountains, right? If it's a warm summer, you might not see it.
And for me, it's also the case. I found, as I've looked back over my time living in Calgary, that often when I was in the mountains, it is spring, or I mean, June. Your dates of the start of June are perfect, because it's going to be, I mean, who knows what the weather's going to do, but you need to have, for me, you need to have snow on the mountains. Like the Rockies, it's the best way to see them.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, your dates are perfect.
Perfect. Okay. I'll see if I can put it over there. Okay. When does your year usually start? This is the first trip, right? In June?
So we have early departures. This year it's going to be the middle of April. And so through April and then through May. And then, through until the last departures at the start of October. Perfect. But it's interesting, because you're right between that spring and summer. So, the foliage hasn't grown back. The wildlife viewing will be good. The animals mostly haven't retreated to higher ground yet, but they're all awake. So it's, and there's no bad time to visit the Rockies. But again, it comes down to personal preference, but I particularly like the spring and early summer. Perfect.
All right. I'm going to let everybody know, if you're joining us on our Facebook Live with Journey Through the Clouds with the Rocky Mountaineer, please go onto the chat function and say hello, and let us know that you're on here, and we'll be getting started in a few minutes with our Journey Through the Clouds with the Rocky Mountaineer. Very excited.
Yeah.
What's your preferred way of going through the Rockies, from Calgary to Vancouver, or the other way?
Yeah, again, it's a bone of contention. It depends on who you speak to at Rocky. For me, I like starting in Vancouver, because then those first few miles coming out of Vancouver, it's a lot of industrial land, and then you're into the farmland, and then you're climbing up. But to spend that time getting settled in your seat, like getting used to the environment, having the toast and kind of getting the food started and stuff, it's a good way to begin. And then it means at the end of the second day, you're coming up into the Rockies and kind of finishing with that, with the wildlife, and you're like nestled with Journey Through the Clouds. You're coming into Jasper, so you're nestled in the heart of the Rockies. And so I like that transition from the ocean, and then up through the Fraser Valley, and then the next day you come up into the mountains, versus the alternative, whereby you still get all that beautiful scenery and landscape, but then at the end of that day, you've got to kind of get through a bit of the traffic in Vancouver to kind of to finish the journey. So I recommend going west to east, but again, some people prefer to spend more time in Vancouver and do more post. With the trip that the package you put together here for Journey Through the Clouds and the sightseeing, like this is great, because the Iceville Parkway, and then finishing in Calgary, and then I feel like sometimes Calgary doesn't get enough love for the great city that it is, and then all that you can do in and around. So with this journey, if people have a bit more time afterwards, then they can spend more time in Calgary. Of course, getting in and out of both of those cities by air back home is easy as well.
Perfect. All right, be right back, and we'll start. So. All right, Gary, we're going to get started here. Okay. Lindsay, can you show me where that is?
Presentable here.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, okay, so if you go over to, I don't know why you can't see it. Click on the live.
There's always the.
There we go. Okay, perfect. All right. Okay. Perfect. Well, welcome everybody. John Dunphy on behalf of Target Tours want to welcome you to our Facebook Live presentation of Rocky Mountaineer, Journey Through the Clouds. And I got Gary Armstrong from Rocky Mountaineer with me, and I'll give him an introduction here in a quick second. Before we do, we're excited to be presenting this summer trip in June in the middle of winter. So it's nothing like with snow all around us, being able to dream about the summertime travel and being in this warm sunny days out here in the Rockies. Before we begin, kind of talk about the current COVID situation. So as everyone is aware, we're in this Omicron variant that's kind of putting a damper on travel. And you know what, it's affecting everybody just with the restrictions. And you know, we hope everybody's being safe and following the rules. We do know that just from following South Africa, that as fast as this Omicron went up, and it kind of came down as fast as well. So we're hoping by end of February, March, that this is behind us, and then we'll be able to look for brighter days ahead. One of the good things I think we can think about is if you look at where we were this time last year, just starting the vaccination process really. So most of us have had our 2 shots and boosted as well. So I think the one thing that you can kind of take comfort in is that we're a lot farther ahead than we were this time last year. So really excited. We can see light at the end of the tunnel, and we're sure hoping that by June that we'll be on our way out west to Vancouver to see the Rockies. So we've got Lindsay in the background. Lindsay's going to be commenting on our Facebook page. If you have any questions at all, we'll try to. I'll be looking off to my side here, looking at the screen to see if any questions. But I'd like to introduce Gary Armstrong from Rocky Mountaineer. Gary joined Rocky Mountaineer back in October last fall and moved to Ontario, and he's been working with Rocky Mountaineer on the Eastern Canada, BDM for Eastern Canada. Gary worked in Calgary for 12 years, so I think he's very familiar with the Rockies. Very familiar with the Rockies, and I think he can speak well of the experience of going through Rocky Mountaineer. So, Gary, without further ado, I'm going to let you take over.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much for the introduction, John. Thank you all for joining us for this quick introduction to Rocky Mountaineer, to the group that John has put together for these dates in early June for our journey through the clouds. Through the Rocky Mountains, and we'll have some time hopefully for questions at the end, and of course you can put those in the chat, and John will kind of be helping me get them and then answer them as we go through and at the end as well.
Yeah.
So thank you all for attending. I do want to speak to health and safety as well. It is important. Ultimately, we all live in this new COVID reality. I think it is true that we are in a much better position in 2022 than we have been since the start of this pandemic. Ultimately, at Rocky Mountaineer, safety is always our #1 priority. We work with heavy equipment, and as they say in the industry, safety is no accident. And so we are committed to ensuring that we are able to put in place procedures, policies, practices that mitigate the risk of transmission of COVID-19. We operated at the end of our 2021 season. We rapid tested every single traveler who got on board our trains, and we hope that we won't need to do that in 2022, but we have done it in the past. We will, if we're required to, do it in the future. But ultimately, last year, we didn't have a single traveler, a single guest test positive on any of our Canadian routes. And we are able to put in place the guidelines and measures set forth by the federal government and the local provincial governments as well. And so I can speak to what we were able to do last year. In terms of our regulations, we are basically a rolling restaurant for public health measures. And so we are also federally regulated. Every single passenger boarding a plane, a train, or a cruise ship in Canada is required to be fully vaccinated by the federal government. And then on board, again, this was during at the end of our season last year. While you're sitting at your seat or while you're in the dining level and eating, you are not required to wear a mask. However, when you're moving through the coach, when you're going down to that dining level, when you're going and using the bathrooms, you are required to wear a mask at that time. Again, this is what we saw last year, and things can change very quickly, but ultimately we are extremely confident and happy that we're able to operate our entire season this year, and that we'll be providing a safe environment for guests who choose to join us for these, once in a lifetime journeys to see the Rocky Mountains. We have upgraded the air filtration systems on board our trains. Fresh air and ventilation is extremely important for helping to mitigate the spread and potential for spread of COVID-19. So all of the air in the carriage is constantly rotated out every 3.5 minutes. And all of the air, all the fresh air being brought in is all circulated through these bipolar ionizers. So that's over and above all of the sanitation and cleaning regimens that we have in place as well. So that's kind of the health and safety portion. We are, like I said, committed to ensuring that we're providing a safe space for travelers and guests, and that you're able to enjoy the wonderful scenery, the food, the sights and the sounds of going through the Canadian Rockies with us in 2022. So I'll talk a little bit about Rocky Mountaineer as a whole. So the reasons why travelers, guests choose to come with us on these journeys is really a big part of is the romance of railway travel, harking back to a slower pace, an inclusive way of getting from point A to B. These are not commuter trains. We are not in a rush. We are able to give our guests the gift of time. You settle in the morning on the train, you're able to relax and unwind, and then, enjoy the day and soak up the sights and sounds as we go. So the scenery, as you will see through the course of this presentation, is some of the best in the world. The service on board from our onboard hosts is second to none. The storytelling, their ability to bring the landscape, the geological history, as well as the human history of these railroads is absolutely phenomenal. And of course, we have the food, the sweet and the savory, that chance to dine and enjoy local cuisine as you're going through the mountains as well. So we are a daylight only train. You heard us speak just before about the seasonality of our operations. And so we only operate from April through to October, because we want to ensure that travelers, our guests, have the chance to experience the Rocky Mountains in daylight. And so you will not be sleeping on the train. There is nowhere to sleep on the train. At the end of each day, you are staying in our midpoint hotels or our partner hotels at the embarkation and debarkation parts of the journey. And so, it's a nice, comfortable hotel bed at the end of each night and a beautiful train journey during the day. And so I've spoken a little bit about some of what you'll enjoy on board, and we'll speak to it through the course of this presentation. Getting on board, getting settled in, enjoying the food, absolutely spectacular scenery, and the chance to see wildlife in the natural habitat as well as you go through these Rocky Mountains, the hosts and our partner hotels. So let's talk a little bit about the train itself, the physical mode of transportation to get you from Vancouver through the Rockies and into Calgary ultimately. And so John, for this group, has put together a gold leaf package. And so all of the travelers, part of this group, will be in our gold leaf level of service. There are a few benefits to this upgraded mode of transportation with Rocky Mountaineer. So it is a bi-level dome. So that is a 2-story rail coach car. The top story or the top level is going to be where everybody is seated. And you have these absolutely spectacular, custom designed kind of glass domes that give you really fantastic views out into the scenery that you're traveling through. And then for breakfasts and lunches, you are traveling down into the dining car to be served in style and comfort on that lower level. And then at the rear of the coach, we also have that viewing platform. And so the chance to go outside, to breathe in the wonderful smells of the Rocky Mountains, that pine and the spray of the river as you're going along. It really is a fabulous way to travel through the mountains. As you can see from the outside, they really are beautiful transportation vehicles. And then I really wanted to show you what it looks like on the inside as well. Because if you've been to the Rockies before, or when you get there, you will notice that a lot of these views are very vertical. When they built these tracks, they are right up against the mountains. It is a difficult terrain to go through. And so what these beautiful curved glass domes allow is for you to really look up and see the peaks of those mountaintops and the peaks of those trees and the steep hills on either side. And really get the most of the scenery as you're traveling through. Of course, you'll be enjoying conversation from our hosts throughout as well, who are, their timing is fantastic as you come through and often slow down for these points of interest that you'll see along the way. As I mentioned, we're not in a rush. We want to make sure that you're really able to enjoy and learn about the scenery and the landscapes and some of the industrial marvels that you are traveling over and through and rolling on. And so they really are adept at making sure that you're getting the history of the place as well as we're traveling through. Of course, the dining car, breakfast and lunch, and I would point out, this is freshly prepared on board. All of your beverages are included while you're on the train as well. This is an inclusive mode of transportation, all of your snacks. And you can see, our guests sitting down and enjoying some Eggs Benedict and maybe some freshly baked croissant on the rail journey as they traveled through some beautiful scenery as well. And then, of course, the chance to get outside and see the mountains from the viewing platform at the rear. And so the journey that we'll be getting into more detail is our journey through the clouds. So this starts in Vancouver, travels up to our midpoint of Kamloops, where you'll overnight in our midpoint hotel before taking the rails further north, and then coming up through the Rocky Mountains and into Jasper, which is, nestled in the heart of the Rockies. And so it's a really interesting time. As we discussed, these are great dates because when you're in Vancouver, it's gonna feel like summer, right? I definitely recommend bringing a few layers for this trip for the sightseeing either side, because likelihood early June, it's going to be summer weather in Vancouver, but then as you travel up and into the mountains, and certainly by the time you arrive in Jasper, there is the potential for slightly cooler weather as you're still in the end of spring. The foliage not necessarily grown back, great wildlife viewing opportunities. All those animals are awake, they're very hungry, and they're very interested in where their food supplies are, which at that time of year is still those lower elevations where the train tracks are. So it really is a fantastic time to increase the chance of wildlife viewing, but then also, like we discussed, the Rocky Mountains just, for me, they really need that dusting of snow. And so your journey starts in Vancouver with this group tour, this exclusive package that John's put together. You have a full day of sightseeing in Vancouver, and so traveling to Grouse Mountain, going over the Capilano Suspension Bridge, learning about the fauna and the flora of the forests of Vancouver, before the next morning waking up and starting to think about getting on board our train and traveling the next 2 days on the Rocky Mountaineer. So I have a very short video that I really hope works through all of the technology that we're doing right now. And this is going to quickly introduce to you some of the highlights of the train, and then give you kind of a moving picture of what it's like to be on board.
You've enjoyed all that Vancouver has to offer.
Oh.
Do you want to try to go back, Gary?
Yeah, absolutely. You see, it's going to be the case, right, where we can't have a flawless. You see, and if sorry to make people a little bit seasick.
That's okay.
We're there.
There we go.
Take two.
You've enjoyed all that Vancouver has to offer. Now prepare to be transported to a world like no other. Of magnificent coastal mountains, vibrant canyons, daring whitewater rapids, and surreal desert landscapes. As you travel side by side with the Fraser River, Canada's largest salmon run, you'll begin to feel the enormity of our land. Then you're sweeping northbound, deciding whether to focus on the scenery or the world-class cuisine. Pyramid Falls astonish. A glacier-fed creek tumbling out of a hanging valley, then spectacularly dropping 300 feet to join the Thompson River below. This is glacier country too, so enjoy nature's majestic wonders at your own leisurely pace. And then, the pinnacle. At 3,954 meters, Mount Robson is the highest peak in the Canadian Rockies and is fondly known by mountain climbers as the Great White Fright. At Moose Lake, maybe you'll catch sight of an actual moose, or a wolf, bighorn sheep, or a grizzly bear. In 1911, when the Grand Trunk Pacific Railway reached mile 112, a community was born. Now it's your turn to explore charming Jasper. A journey through the clouds. Conquer the highest peaks in the Canadian Rockies and confirm what you've always known. It's anything but lonely at the top.
Perfect.
There we
And
go.
Gary, I'll get that link from you and I'll post that to the Facebook page as well. So if anybody wants to see that again.
Yeah, for sure. I find it such a great way of really getting a window into the what it looks like to be on our Gold Leaf service, and then does a fantastic job of speaking about some of the highlights, and that I'll also go through here. But so this is the journey that lies ahead. Once you've had that excellent day of sightseeing in Vancouver, to wake up a little bit early the following morning, to get the included transfer from your hotel a very short distance to the main platform where we'll board, and then it's time to relax and unwind, get to know a little bit better some of the other guests who are on board, and then have a toast to celebrate the beginning of the journey. Of course, all beverages are included, and so soon after this, we often see, for those who would like, the coffee and Baileys being enjoyed as well. And so the chance to celebrate the beginning of this journey, to be introduced to the onboard hosts, and begin to learn more and just get settled in as you pull out of Vancouver and begin your journey. I should say that while you're on the train, the best thing is to just take a small piece of like a small bag with you. You'll notice there is no overhead storage on board our Gold Leaf service, and so there's only a little bit of storage in front of you. And so recommend dressing in a couple layers. It's the right temperature on the train, and then just having small things with you. All of your luggage is going to be transferred and arrive before you and be there when you arrive at that midpoint hotel and that finishing hotel. So any medication, anything like that, please keep with you. Your camera, your batteries, your extra batteries for your camera, all of that stuff. But everything else can be left in your luggage, and it will arrive ahead of time at your midpoint hotel and final hotel for day 2. And then it's breakfast time. So very quickly, you're pulling away. With our gold level service, half of the guests on board will dine at a time, while the other half will have the chance to kind of soak in the views. But earlier I mentioned, it's not just the beautiful eggs Benny. It is a very diverse and relatively large menu to choose from for your first breakfast on board. We've never had any guests leave the train not well fed and not happy, and often just amazed at what we're able to do and the quality of the cuisine that we're able to serve on board. Of course, with some of the most spectacular views rolling by as you're enjoying your meal. Of course, for those guests who are upstairs, once the first lunch serving and tables have eaten, then it's your turn to go downstairs and have your lunch as well. Or if you're in the first group, you're upstairs and having the chance to soak in those views. And those views will include the Cisco Bridge. And so this is one of those engineering feats that enabled the joining of Canada into one nation through the railroads. And so two competing companies, there's the CP line and the CN line, and the people who were there first were built on the easier side of the river and then crossed, and then CN Rail came along and like, okay, we need to build, and so they then built on the other side of the river, but the crossing point is the same. So it's the one space where you can actually see trains going in both directions as you both cross over the Fraser River to continue on your tracks. And then, it mentions some of the wildlife viewing and the opportunities as you go through. You're traveling along Kamloops Lake before arriving in your first midpoint, the Kamloops Hotel. And so you will be given your hotel keys on board. There is no waiting in line. There is no checking in. It is a seamless and very smooth service, that runs like clockwork. And you will be able to walk directly into your hotel room, and your luggage will be there. And we often talk about the luggage ferries. We're going by train, and yes, sure, we're not in a rush, but how does that luggage get there in advance? It is one of those, those secrets of the railroad. The chance to unwind and then explore Kamloops at your leisure that evening. It is a relatively early morning, the next morning, to wake up, to have breakfast on board. And then one of the highlights is going to be Mount Robson. So this is the highest peak in the Rocky Mountains, and it actually generates its own weather. So this is a very, very unique photo in that you can actually see the top of Mount Robson. There are far more images in our image library of Mount Robson with its peak shrouded in cloud, because it does just really generate its own weather. You can have the clearest and most beautiful day on the train and still not be able to see the peak of Mount Robson. And then, of course, the Pyramid Falls. And so traveling along, and if you are, if you planned it well and you speak into our hosts and you're outside on the viewing platform as you go past Pyramid Falls, if the flow is heavy enough, if we've had the ice melt at the right time for this glacier-fed falls, then you'll actually be able to feel the spray coming in and hitting the train. And as I mentioned, we do slow down through the journey so that there is a lot of time for everybody to take pictures and enjoy and learn about these marvels as we go through. We are not in a rush, and so it gives you that chance to enjoy the scenes as you're going through each day. And of course, part of that is wildlife as well. So our hosts are actually tuned in to they have instant communication with the train engineers. And so they are constantly looking out for wildlife. So if there is that bear further down the tracks, they will let each of the hosts know so that our guests can make sure that they're able to see that wildlife. Again, traveling at June is a really fantastic time to increase your likelihood of seeing the grizzlies, seeing the black bear, moose, elk. The mountains really are full of wildlife, and the ospreys, the birds of prey are out there as well. So a beautiful way of just, you're not trying to do anything else while watching these and looking for the wildlife. You're able to sit back, you're able to relax, enjoy some food, some wine, some great conversation with the other guests that you're traveling with, while still being able to enjoy the majesty of the outdoors and the variety of fauna and flora that's there as well. And then especially as you're pulling into Jasper, so that is the end of your second day. You're arriving in the small mountain town of Jasper and staying in our partner hotels. As part of this tour with John, you've also got a guided excursion on Malign Lake, which is, you can see, is absolutely spectacular. And so although for me, like the train portion of this is a real highlight and a big part of the tour, you have that day sightseeing in Vancouver and also a number of days of travel to see the best of the Rocky Mountains in Alberta as well. Once you've had your day sightseeing in Jasper, visiting Malign Lake, then you're traveling through the Iceville Parkway, so boarding coaches with our partners and getting to drive along what I feel is the most spectacular 230 odd kilometers of highway in the world. June, again, a great time to be traveling on that route because there is a little bit less traffic, fewer people in the mountains at that time. The real summer guests season and school holidays haven't quite really got going yet. The opportunity to go and see the Columbia Glacier, to get on board and learn about that ice formation. Also visiting the Glacier Skywalk and again, just soaking in the scenery before heading down to Lake Louise. And so staying at Chateau Lake Louise, again, a day to relax and unwind, simply to explore the chateau because it is a beautiful place. But also there is a path that you can walk around the lake as well and go up to the tea house, which will be open at the start of June to get a better view of the glacier that feeds the lake at Lake Louise. One of the few drives that is as spectacular as the drive from Jasper to Lake Louise is, of course, the drive from Lake Louise to Banff. Again, a full sightseeing day in Banff, the opportunity to go up Sulphur Mountain, to travel on the gondola, and to see the spectacular views of Banff as well. This is making me homesick. This is when I was living in Calgary, had the opportunity to go and see all of the time. And it never diminishes. Like no matter how many times you visit the Rocky Mountains, how many times you visit Banff, go up to Lake Louise, spend time on the Iceville Parkway. And no matter what time of year you're there, it's absolutely spellbindingly beautiful. And then, of course, a transfer to Calgary and a night's accommodation there. And as I mentioned, I lived there for a number of years, so I am, of course, extremely biased, but feel that it is a wonderful city for those looking to explore, the prairies. So that's the Rocky Mountaineer journey in a nutshell, our journey through the clouds, as well as the exclusive sightseeing package that's built into these June dates with John and Target Tours. So I really think you've picked a fantastic time to go. I really enjoyed putting this presentation together. And if there's any questions that anybody has, then fire away. I'm happy to help.
Yeah. Perfect. One of the questions. That's a great presentation, Gary, and we'll high five the bear when we're out there, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so the boss, there's it's interesting because we do see a lot of wildlife. And if you know of Alberta and Banff, then you know of the boss. He is the largest grizzly bear and has the largest territory in that region. And he visited the train last fall, and I saw a picture of the claw marks. Obviously, we keep the doors closed. You're not getting out to see the bear, and we're certainly not letting the bear in. But just the claw marks of him, resting on the boarding steps that go up to that particular goldleaf carriage were very interesting to see.
What time does this train, what time do they board the train? So in Vancouver, we're in the hotel in Vancouver, but we don't have breakfast in Vancouver, right? So
no. So breakfast is on the train. So that first day, that first rail day, we're usually boarding and setting away at about 7:30. It is a very short transfer from your hotel to the train. We're talking about, this is Vancouver traffic, but still it's a 5-minute tops. Like we board the coach, we transfer, just because it's easier to transport our guests by coach from the hotel because there's some busy roads, but it's a very short distance. But you're looking at about a 7:30 departure. Okay.
And to all our participants on Facebook Live, if you have any questions that you want to ask myself or Gary, just please put them in your comment section. But I do have a question while we're waiting, Gary. Dress code. Is there a dress code?
No, is the short answer. So I like to, dress as our hosts will dress. They will be, of course, dressed, semi-formally, but there is no dress code to be on board.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. I'm happy with that. And I think we did have a question from Paul, but I think we answered it as well. Just does the train run through at night? But it doesn't.
No, so it's the main feature for us is that it boggles the mind to me that you would travel through the Rocky Mountains at night. I mean, even when I would drive that distance myself, like you could drive it at night and there'd be less traffic, but it never made sense to me. And so for us, it is the viewing opportunities by day. And so that's why we have the season that we do, so that there's enough daylight in the day to make the journey. And it's what makes us Rocky Mountaineer, is that daylight only operation.
Perfect. And like I said, I think at that time of year, when we talked about before our live, that I like it because like I say, in the spring of the year, the snow is still in the mountains. If you were going through in September, if it's a warm summer, the snow might have melted by then. So I guess it's, let's talk about what to wear at that time of year. I know it's going to be warm in Vancouver, but what about going through the Rockies?
Layers. Yeah. So it's all about layers, right? A scarf, a toque, just in case, especially for the evenings. So you're going to be on board the train during the day and very comfortable, and then straight into your transferred from the train to your hotel to go upstairs and kind of get into your luggage. And so that's why you don't necessarily need a lot of things with you on the train, unless you want to be spending a lot of time on the viewing platform. But ultimately, definitely bring layers for that sightseeing, because there are going to be extended periods of time, in Lake Louise and in Jasper when you're going to be outside. So having a good coat, having a scarf, and a toque are really going to help you. For temperatures, it varies. You're in the mountains, so the temperature in Calgary is going to be different to the temperature in Banff, which will be different to the temperature in Jasper. You never know. It could be in reverse as well, whereby you're in Jasper and suddenly it's a 25-degree day, but by the time the next few days have gone down and you've got to Calgary, suddenly it's cooler. But dress in layers, don't pack too much, enjoy the journey. Yeah,
a good sweater. I remember when we were at the Icefield Parkway, that it was snowing by the time we went up there, right? So you just got to be prepared. Another question
for sure. The wind. Yeah. Like I've most of the time when I've been at the Columbia Glacier, there's been a good wind coming off that ice. So for sure you want to have layers with you for that day of sightseeing.
And the Icefield Parkway, it's a good, even there's a museum part there as well, that how the effects of climate change and how much the glacier is retreating. So you'll see some signposts of where it was back in the early 1900s and where it is now. So another question: menu choices from Peggy. Thank you, Peggy. Do we need to? No, that was What are the menu choices on the plane? Not everyone has to eat the same stuff, right?
No, of course not. So yes, there's a number of choices for breakfast and for lunch. If you have dietary requirements, please let us know in advance, and we are able to meet most dietary requirements. The kitchen on board is not a kosher kitchen, and so we can't meet that specific religious requirement. But outside of that, we are very good at being able to meet most requirements for diners. Just let us know in advance. John, get that information, let us know, and we can make sure that there's options that are good for those guests. And then, yes, there is a lot of choice on the menu, and you're not going to go hungry while you're on board. We don't have our menu for 2020. Like, I haven't seen the physical menu printed out yet. It's coming soon. We have our new executive chef, although we haven't been told, it's not all official yet. So we're still waiting, but these small details will be ironed out very quickly, as we are 90 odd days away from the beginning of operations in April. So we will be able to provide those menus to you in advance if you would like, or you can wait for the surprise on the day and make those choices while you're there.
Perfect. Question about Wi-Fi. Is there Wi-Fi available on the train?
Absolutely not. I think one of the great things about the Rocky Mountains is that there is very spotty reception at best with your cell phone. And you'll notice as we go through some of the smaller towns, a lot of people are frantically, everybody trying to get cell phone signal at the same time. There is no Wi-Fi on board. Which again, it's a time to disconnect, to relax, to talk and get to know the other guests that you're traveling with. And so for those out of offices, if you are taking vacation time, then you will not be checking emails, you will not be getting back to people, you'll be enjoying your trip through the Rocky Mountains. Perfect.
That's I'll be looking forward to that.
I would say so with our partner hotels in Kamloops, you know, the infrastructure is relatively good. In Lake Louise, it can be not quite as good as far as cell phone reception and internet access. I mean, a hotel will have it, but it's difficult. Whereas once you get into Banff and then of course into Calgary, and while you're in Vancouver, absolutely there's connectivity.
Perfect. I got a great question from Frank. Are there any freight trains on the rail line that you have to pull over for?
On occasion, yes. So it depends on the priorities and the level of freight. And so on occasion, it could be that we are running at the same time as freight trains, and often, yes, depending on the nature of the tracks that we're pulling over for them. But yeah, it's all part of the journey. These are live tracks. They're used for freight. But we're lucky that we're able to work with great partners with both CN and CP. They have directional movement. So if you're going west to east with us, then you're on one track, and then if you're going east to west, you're on the other. And so they share nicely as well, those two rail companies, to make sure that it eases the flow of goods. But absolutely, there may be times when we're able to stop for a bit longer, but usually we're able to get priority. Perfect.
Another question is from Gary, one of our tour directors. Are there any stops during the day? Like, does the train stop at all during the day, or does it just slow down?
It just slows down. So usually, I mean, like you said, there are times where if we need to stop, we can stop. But ultimately, there's no embarkation or disembarkation of guests from one day to the next. So usually, we are running the whole way.
Perfect. Great questions, everybody. From Janet, what about footwear? Is there anything specific that you need for footwear?
I would say, stay comfortable, right? I mean, you want to be able to go up and down the spiral staircase, the staircase between the upper level and the dining level. Comfortable is best.
I think when, like I say, if you're in Icefield Parkway going up into the glacier, you're on a glacier, right? So you are on ice. So there could be some water running. So just make sure maybe a hiker boots, something that has a good sole that.
I mean, so hiking boots are going to be a bit bulky in your bag to take for the one day, for the one event. I would say that, I mean, the Columbia Glacier, yes, you're on ice, but you're not, you're on a part of the glacier, but you're not on the glacier proper because of the health and safety risks of being, a changing glacier. And so, although there are spots where, you're walking on snow and occasionally ice, but often by June, it just depends on if they've had snow the day before, right? Or in the days prior. But I would say that a good pair of good shoes are going to last you on the ice field as well. I mean, if they can be waterproof, that would be great, because yes, there is the potential for snow, or that there will be snow and ice. So trainers are not always the best thing, although they may be comfortable. Something in between.
Perfect. So we're getting close to the end here, Gary, and what we can do is we do have 10 seats left. So make sure that that you don't miss out. We do have, I think, a booking deadline where deposits by the end of March. I think that we want to get everybody signed up by the end of March, or sorry, middle of March. So make sure that that you join us then. But this is washrooms on the train, and the bus as well. So is there?
There's certainly washrooms on the trains. And so there's a couple of them in Gold Leaf, and so you're looked after. On the coaches, I will double check, but every coach that I've been on in Alberta has had a washroom on it.
Yeah, so you don't really have washrooms, but I think on the motor coach, you're going to stop every 2 hours anyway, so to make a stop. So we'll
There's
have lots
so many,
of washroom stops.
yeah, it's hard to keep driving on the Iceville Parkway because there are so many places. The benefit of stopping at the Columbia Icefield Park and Columbia Icefield Center, and then also at the Skywalk, is that there are better facilities there. Now there are facilities throughout, but often not of a it's not always great in the national parks. Whereas at those places where we have additional infrastructure, it's better.
Perfect. I just got a note passed by my trusted advisor, Lindsay, and the final payment date is February 22nd. So we'd like everybody signed up by then to be able to go. So it's it's guaranteed now. So hopefully we'll have a good group going out from the Maritimes. And again, flights are from PEI, Charlottetown, Moncton, Halifax, and Fredericton. If you're going to join us, and a small group. We only have 26 passengers on board. So that's with our group, plus our tour director. And our tour director will be there along the way to assist in anything. The guided part is, again, on board. The train is, we have some specialists that are with us from Rocky Mountaineer. But when we get to the motor coach, then the driver is our guide, and Target Tours is there to assist them in any way possible. So if there's, we'll be posting this onto our Facebook page. And if there's any other questions, please send us an email at info@targettours.ca. And we will, if there's any questions that we can answer, we'll reach out to Gary for that specialty. So thank you very much, Gary, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this Facebook Live. We hope you enjoyed it. And we're going to keep doing these on a monthly basis. Make sure you let us know what you want to see and hear. All right.
That's great. Thanks so much, John. Thanks for having me.
Great. Thanks, Gary. Take care.